Before I start, I want to put a bit of a trigger warning that this episode is going to talk about body image and appearance. So if you think you'll be triggered by things like eating disorders or body dysmorphia or anything like that, maybe this episode isn't for you. But yeah, thank you so much. Who or what has influenced the way that you perceive your body? How often do you find yourself comparing your appearance to others? How does the way you view your body impact how you go about your day and life? Let's talk about body image and appearance. Welcome back to the Nether Region Podcast, besties. For those of you who are joining for the first time, my name is Nethersole. I'm a musician, content creator, but mostly I'm just a boy with a lot of emotions, a boy that grew up too quickly, and yeah, this is sort of like free therapy because therapy is very expensive. But no, I've been away for a bit. I think the last podcast episode that I did was about maybe like February or like January or something like that. And within like the last week or the last month or so, I've had quite a few people asking me about, what's going on with the podcast, like what's happened to it and stuff like that. And even my manager who I just got was like, are you thinking of bringing back the podcast and stuff like that? And I was like, okay, I feel like I have to talk about this. And whenever I do come back to do the podcast, I feel like I have to talk about it. But to the people who asked, I said kind of the same thing of I have been really, really saddened in like a very dark place. And even though there's been amazing, happy things and like incredible things happening, I've kind of been in a bit of a lull for a while. And I think especially within, very recently, and because of that, I just didn't feel like I was in a space mentally where I felt comfortable or I felt like, I was in a space where I could confidently give other people advice on their own lives or how to go about things, or even talk about my own experiences when I hadn't really healed or, kind of processed a lot of the things that I was feeling. And I think, although I still haven't done that fully, I think that I'm in a better mental headspace to take on something like podcasting again, because I feel like I'm in a better place. And yeah, that's the reason that I took a little bit of a break away from it. But today we're going to be talking about body image and appearance. And I wanted to talk about this because I was home for a bit, back in the country. And when I was thinking of, starting out doing the podcast again, and this was something that, came to mind. And I think I caught myself slipping back into some old habits and some old thought patterns around body and body image and the way that I perceive my body and the things I do when, I'm not feeling the best about my body and stuff like that. But there's kind of three kind of sections or subcategories for today's episode, which we'll break through kind of about school and how body image and appearance, kind of impacted me when I was in school and how that kind of progressed and stuff like that. Then also talking about, body image and appearance within the queer world and how my queer awakening and experience has influenced and impacted my relationship with my body and the way that I perceive myself. And the last one is about social media and being a content creator and I'm not going to use the word influencer, I just did. Being that and, posting, my body and my face and things like that. Appearance is such a important and integral part of being a content creator, and I think a lot of the time pretty privilege comes into it as well, and I see that with a lot of other creators. But maybe that's something for another episode, or maybe I'll go on a rant later, who's to know. But yeah, since I was very young, I just did not like my body. It's something that I can't remember never not dealing with or never not being consumed by. And I remember in primary school, so many of my friends were, these skinny, athletic, twig kids. And even though I wasn't that big or chubby, I remember feeling just an immense amount of security about my body, insecurity about my body, and just having this idea of my body as too flabby. And this obviously stems from internalized fat phobia and is a result of the media and opinions of others that I was consuming around this idea of body and appearance. But like most things, it's not the physical changes that's the hardest. It's the mental and emotional. For example, by year 8, I had abs, and I still felt the same as I did in primary school when I was surrounded by, these friends who were, these twig, skinny, athletic kids. I still felt the same, even though, I had abs and, I wasn't, crazily different to the people who I was, surrounded by. But even though I had these things, these markers that I always thought like, oh, if I have abs or if I have, these big biceps or something like that, then I won't feel insecure. Even when I had those things, I was still scared to take my shirt off if we had to swim or when we had to get changed for sport. And this insecurity and this shame definitely made me change my behavior. I mean, I felt such an immense amount of shame around my body for absolutely no reason. And I just simply wanted to hide it. And, if I was going to the toilet, I'd specifically wait for a cubicle or a spot at the urinals where there was no one around and, it was the furthest one away from anyone or the one that no one would go to or like no one would come near. If I was getting changed for sport at school with friends, I would quickly change shirts and pants to avoid being exposed in that moment. And it didn't just change my behavior in these ways, but it also changed my eating behaviors and the way that I went about, consuming food and stuff like that. That was also a thing that massively, massively changed because of my growing insecurity and my shame and just the relationship that I was having with my body. I remember in primary school, and I specifically remember in, years 5 and 6 at primary school, I wouldn't eat the lunch that was given to me for years and years, like the packed lunch that, my dad and auntie would make for me. And I'd give it to my friends. And even though now I look back and I feel so bad and ungrateful for the time my dad and auntie would have put into making those lunches, I just could not bring myself to eat them for some reason that like I don't even really understand now. And I think obviously it's the same as the things I was talking about before, but I just could not bring myself to eat the lunch that was provided for me. So when I got to high school, I remember being given money to use at the canteen because by then everyone in my family, I imagine, had just assumed that I was picky and they just wanted me to eat something, even if, it was something at the canteen or something. They just assumed that, oh, Tom's just picky. But obviously that wasn't completely true. I hated the idea of eating in front of people, even when they were openly eating their food in front of me at recess and lunch. So when I was given this money to, use at the canteen to buy myself lunch, my family wanted me to eat just, to fulfill a basic human necessity. When I was given this money, I kept it. And that's an act that I feel really, really terribly about now. And yeah, I just feel horrible for doing that. And ultimately, the feeling of being hungry and starving became my norm. And when I began to feel that sickness in my stomach, that constriction and twisting of my insides, I felt like it was an achievement because it meant that I had resisted and was going to become skinnier. And I remember, I don't know if I had talked about this with a friend, but I feel like a friend's mentioned at one time, years and years back, about the feeling in their stomach that, I feel hungry and I'm starving, almost portraying that as like a good thing. And I think the fact that that became my norm, this pain and this yearning, this lightheadedness and, my stomach begging for something to be put into it, the fact that that pain in my stomach became my norm and my reality, and the fact that I saw it as an achievement as opposed to, oh, this is really, really bad and dangerous and, this could really damage my body. I saw it as, good job, Tom. You did great. You've resisted. You've met the challenge. You're going to become skinnier now. You're going to get where you wanted. This habit of starving myself was really, really dangerous. And it's possibly the reason that I get sick so often now because I wasn't feeding my body, and maybe it's the reason that, I got sick back then because I wasn't feeding my body. And obviously, this evidently stemmed from an immense amount of security and wanting to have a body that simply was not possible, or a body that was not healthy for me to attain. And this kind of goes into the second part where I also think that these ideas, although most likely stemming from things I heard from family members and the media about appearance and bodies, I think I was also influenced by my queer awakening and experiences. I mean, when I was younger and saw guys in TV shows and movies, I remember talking about this before, I confused wanting to be like them with wanting to be with them. And at that time, when I was very, very young and obviously not aware of being queer and stuff like that, my type at that time, at that young age, was of a skinny, athletic, scrawny boy. And my type at that young age of that body was misunderstood. I thought, unaware of my queer desires, that I wanted to have that body myself, and thus began my dangerous and destructive eating and exercising habits. But moreover, I believe that I was also being influenced by the queer community and the clear body issues that surround the gay men world. And this is something that I, perceived when I was very, very young, and then in my teens, and now being 19 and, moving to Melbourne and, being in the queer spaces here, I definitely think that there is a lot of fat phobia and a lot of judgment towards people with bodies that don't, align with what is seen as acceptable. And I think that it's very, very weird to go into spaces where it's everyone with the same body type, or, I specifically don't go to certain clubs because it's all these, massive, muscly, like white gays. And it just feels very, very weird and exclusive and, kind of exclusionary. Is that a word? Of them to do that. And I feel like it doesn't feel very accepting and inviting, which is often, associated with the queer community. So I feel like the queer community definitely influenced and shaped the way that I thought about my body. And I thought, as I started to realize my, sexuality and stuff like that, I started thinking, oh, well, if I am this way, if I'm gay, if I'm bisexual, if I'm queer, if I'm in that community, then I need to have the body that, is being promoted. And I think as much as we don't want to admit it, I think that the people who are most vulnerable to these kinds of ideas and damaging beliefs are queer youth and young people who are so impressionable and don't have someone to tell them that that's not the case. So I think going into that and, seeing those kind of ideas really shaped the way that I thought about my body and the way that I thought that it has to be. And, I thought that if I was this skinny, scrawny person, I would be what's referred to as a twink and, would therefore be more desirable and would receive more attention, more praise, more love, because that's what was being, distributed to me. That was what I was consuming. That was the media and the ideas that, I was unconsciously being taught about what it meant to be a queer person and, what you had to look like in order to receive attention and praise and love, which is the thing that obviously everybody wants. Everybody craves connection in whatever form it comes in. And once again, this want to be connected stems from a deep-rooted desire for attention and love and acceptance. And it wasn't until about 2021 that I realized, with the help of a friend, that I didn't really want to be that skinny boy. I, for years, had told myself that, I shouldn't be eating. Like I just want to be this skinny twink boy. But when it came to, this time and talking with this friend and kind of working through it with them, and also with like the support of a therapist and medical professional and stuff, I realized that wasn't actually what I wanted, and I didn't know why I had convinced myself that was what I'd wanted. I wanted to be toned and I wanted to be muscular. I didn't want to be this skinny, scrawny boy. I wanted to be strong. I wanted to be able to stand up for myself physically like I thought I could. And by then I had come to somewhat attain that body. I had abs, some nice muscles. I was athletic. It wasn't that bad. However, despite the revelation and the accomplishment, as I would have said back then, the ideas and thought patterns and behaviors that I had still persisted. And although before I was starving myself to be skinnier and scrawnier, I was now doing the same thing to shed fat and to have a muscular body and to maintain that body that, I had come to have and worked to kind of achieve, if that's what you want to call it. And I kind of want to just clarify right now and have a little bit of a disclaimer before I go any further that I'm obviously not advocating for this behavior. This is disordered eating. This is a problem. And for anyone who is experiencing these similar things, maybe with the idea of becoming skinnier or with the hope of being muscular, it's important to know that this doesn't make you healthier, especially for people who might be thinking, like I did, that not feeding myself as much as I should would result in me losing fat and just keeping muscle. In fact, your muscles need energy and sustenance to survive and thrive, and you are definitely not helping by doing this. If you are concerned about your own health or someone else, please seek the help of a medical professional. I am not that. This is not that. This is not the, although this may be really good for your emotional, well-being and feeling seen and hearing about it, I am not a medical professional. That is not me. I'm simply sharing my experience, and my experience is not necessarily going to be the same as yours. So feel free to message me and send me a message if you do want to talk and to get clarification on anything I say that in this episode. But for professional advice, please reach out to a medical professional for help and for guidance and to be treated for what is a real health problem. Yeah, thank you. And with that, let's continue on. Whew. She's getting deep. It's getting a bit dark. And this next section that I kind of want to talk about is about social media and the impact that had on my eating. But first, I'm going to take a little sip of water. I'll be back in like 3 seconds. I'm going to keep recording. I'm back. Also, I think that definitely there was a pressure I felt that there was a pressure to maintain or uphold the body that I'd built. I think around year 7, year 8, I'd started posting photos on Instagram of myself and, creative portraits that I'd made to experiment with photography and to refine my skills. And as it progressed, inspired by the human body and the work of artists I admired and, the kind of work that they were doing, the kind of subject matter they had, I began being shirtless in these photos and posting them to Instagram. And what was the response of me posting these photos? It was praise, it was shock, it was comments, it was likes, it was DMs. And I was constantly being reinforced for the destructive behavior that I was exhibiting. And this isn't the fault of anyone who commented those things. It's what I was wanting in the end. Like they were just feeding into, what social media was kind of designed for. They were doing what they thought was being supportive, but obviously the behavior that I was exhibiting to get to that place was not healthy, and it was very, very destructive and damaging. But it's undeniable that the power of social media and the access to it influenced and reinforced my eating habits, or the lack thereof. I felt a constant need to improve and reimagine and refine what I posted. I needed to look better the next time. Even I, the person taking the photos and editing them and, going into all these details, who knew how certain lighting and contorted poses would make my body look more toned than it was in others. Even I, after knowing all that, felt the pressure to have the body that I was posting. I knew that the photos that I was posting didn't really reflect truthfully what my body was looking at the time. Even if I wasn't face tuning or photoshopping my body in any way, I was exaggerating what was actually real or what was actually, my reality. And I think that it's wild that even someone like me who knew what was going into the process of those photos being, made and created, even I who knew all that felt the pressure to have that body. I think that is so, so crazy. In that way, I now worry what kind of influence I had over the people who followed me, who saw those photos, who saw the praise that I was receiving, who didn't know the process that it took to get there, whether it was the disordered eating habits, or whether it was the high contrast photo editing, or whether it was the lights or the contorted poses or all these different things. The people who didn't know that and saw my body and thought that they had to, achieve that body as well, and saw the praise that I was getting for posting that, I worry what kind of influence I had over that. Even though I was young when I was posting this, in high school, year 7, year 8, through to, year 11, year 12, even though I was young, I know I had and still do have people who are younger than me, who follow me, who are unconsciously or consciously influenced by what I put out there. And I remember when we were about to head into year 12, our final year of high school, the leaders and prefects all had a day where we came into the school and we had like these guest speakers talk to us about leadership. And one of these people, his name was Himmel Pillay, and he was talking about how as a leader and an older person in the school, whether, you're a prefect or you're the school captain, or whether you were just in year 12, being an older person in the school, and especially someone with a title or a leadership position, you were a role model. You were like an older sibling, that everyone in the younger year levels were your younger siblings. Everything you did, the way you wore your uniform, the way you addressed teachers, how attentive you were during assemblies, they would observe or notice that behavior, and that behavior would be continued. So there was kind of this pressure to behave in a certain way and present yourself in a certain way that you would feel okay with someone, replicating, and being aware that people were watching you, whether you knew it or not, or whether you recognized it or not. You were influencing the way that the younger kids in, younger year levels thought of people, in leadership positions, or who were older and thought, this is how you're supposed to do this. This is how you're supposed to sit during assemblies. This is how you're supposed to address teachers. This is the way you wear your uniform with pride. This is how you talk to your friends in a friendly manner. It's these little things. And in that same way, I feel now an obligation at times to not promote such superficial things so consistently and often as I used to, because I'm aware of, the people who follow me, and the fact that some of the people who follow me, and maybe a large percentage, are younger than me. And in that way, they're going to be unconsciously or consciously influenced by what I post. So I kind of do feel an obligation at times to not post as many shirtless things, or, not post as much about my body. It's something that is in my mind from time to time. So what's changed? What have I actually changed after noticing these things and realizing that I'm a role model to, people below me, whether I know it or whether they know it? What have I done to change? What's changed after this realization and after these guest speakers and after this experience? I mean, if you've noticed on my Instagram, I'm not posting myself shirtless as much, or as often as I would be. And if I am, maybe it's just my shoulders in it, or it's within a slide in a carousel post, as opposed to like the main one on the feed that you see as soon as you go into my profile. That's probably one of the main things that I've changed when it comes to, doing these sort of photo shoots. I think I'm focusing more on, wearing cool outfits, or having cool, concepts and stuff like that, or posting about like an event that I went to or something like that, or music that's coming out. I think focusing on stuff like that, and that being the interesting thing, as opposed to this is how my body looks. I think it's incredibly weird that I was posting myself shirtless so much as a 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old. That is incredibly weird. And the fact that I was getting, praise and comments from people who were older than me, even though there were people, my age and my friends, and, maybe a person in like a younger year level, like 1 year below, who was the same age as me, like maybe they were commenting as well. But the fact that there were people who were this many years older than me or stuff, commenting consistently, saying like, wow, and like that was a terrible example. But almost reinforcing and, supporting a child posting themselves shirtless, I don't know. It seems very, very weird to me. And I know that I now, being 19, wouldn't do those same things. And I think that's what's weird to me. And, being at an age now where I'm the same age as, some people that would comment at the time, people that were year levels above me who would comment on these things. Being that age now and thinking about like being the same age as they were and doing the same things that they did, even something as little as commenting on a post or something like that, it seems so weird because I just know that I wouldn't do that, or I would feel very weird about commenting those same things, or, consciously or unconsciously promoting that kind of content. It seems very, very weird to me. But obviously, like, we all have different, morals and just kind of different things that we're thinking about or prioritizing, are things that, come to mind. And obviously that's one for me. And I think that's probably because of the experience that I've had, that it makes me think of that. But in terms of what's changed in regards to body image, I think it's a long process of body acceptance, and like all problems, recognizing that there is one is the first step to overcoming it. And I think that a lot of people talk about, loving your body and stuff like that. But the thing about, I'm not striving to love my body, I'm just striving to accept my body. Body acceptance being, the main priority. I think there's a lot of truth in that. And yeah, I think that's something that's really, really important. And I remember a tool that, what was I saying? Recognizing a problem. We got there, besties. Recognizing that there is a problem is the first step to overcoming it. And I remember that, I messed up again. I keep going back to the same point. Recognizing and, catching yourself when you start to think certain things, and, if you're stopping yourself from eating a certain thing, or when a thought pops into your head, just catching that thought and catching certain behaviors, why you are behaving a certain way, and asking yourself where that comes from. And here's the point that I've tried to start 3 times and realized that I needed to say that bit before. I remember a tool that we learned on Melbourne Camp in Year 9 was to keep asking why in relation to why people are homeless, and then you get to the crux of the problem. Just repeating why to every single statement really gets to the root of the problem. And in this case, in our own personal lives, it's that same sort of concept of, I shouldn't eat that. Oh, sorry, that's not a question. It's, I messed up. That thing of like, I shouldn't eat that. And then thinking to yourself, why? Because it'll make me fat. Why shouldn't you eat something that makes you fat? Because I don't want to be fat. Why don't you want to be fat? Because I don't want to be unattractive. Why is it unattractive to be fat? Is that true? Just because that's what I've been taught. Why were you taught that? Because people were projecting their insecurities onto me, and now I have the same shame that they've instilled within me. Okay, why did they project? I guess because they had been taught to feel shame from media and commercials and society. Why did commercials shame them for being fat? I guess so they could make more money by creating a problem that their products could fix. Yeah, that kind of process. That's a really good example. So all in all, what is the crux of the problem? And to that, I'd say capitalism. All in all, why do we feel shame? Capitalism. Yep. There you go. I just solved all the problems. Do you still feel bad about your body? No, I don't think that is going to solve any problems, but I think recognizing why you feel a certain way, whether it's like a moment in your childhood or something that someone said years ago once in like a classroom or something like that, recognizing where the kind of, prejudices that we have lie, recognizing why we think the way that we do is the first step to altering and changing and, changing what we think. But I think, yeah, getting to the part about who taught you certain things and looking back and thinking about whether what was said was valid and truthful, I think that is really important in recognizing whether the thoughts you're having are valid and, you know, whether there's any truth in the things that you're thinking, or whether it is simply a bunch of ideas that continue to make you act in ways that are destructive and eat away at your mental and physical health. And ultimately, to kind of round out this kind of discussion, ultimately body trends are going to continue to change, but you're going to have your body forever, the same skin, the same blemishes, etc., for your whole life. So don't change something that was designed to be for a lifetime for a brief moment in pop culture. To quote my own song, Build-A-Bear, go stream it. I'm not quoting myself. To quote my song, Build-A-Bear, she built me a little bit stronger, built me a little bit taller, built me a little bit faster. Why wouldn't I want my body when it was made just for me? Yeah, she put in the extra stuffing, she built a Build-A-Bear, and it was me. Yeah, period. He ate with that. Why wouldn't I want my body when it was made just for me? I have a unique body. It's not like anyone else's. It might be, actually. We have doppelgangers, but it's specifically for me. I have a unique fingerprint that's different to everyone else. I have blemishes on my face that are different to everyone else. I have my own eyes that are different to everyone else. The combination of our, body and the things within like our body are so special that it seems crazy to want to change them. But in saying that, I know that we all do, because I feel that way and I have battled with that for a long, long time of feeling like I want to change my body. And that's the reason that, I wrote that song, was because I've wanted to change my body so much and have put in a lot of, I don't want to say work. I've done a lot of things to change my body, and although it's changed it, it hasn't always been for the best. And a lot of the times it's been destructive and damaging, and it's had repercussions because of that. And with that, I'll leave it there for next time. I really, really enjoyed being back, and if there's anything that I missed that you want me to talk about, or a concept for a future episode that you've been dying to hear me talk about, send me a message, leave me a comment, maybe make a 25-minute YouTube video just pleading for me to talk about it. I don't know, whatever you want. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed being back. This is really, really fun. And yeah, I'm really glad to be back. Thank you for being so patient. Yeah, like I said, I really didn't want to come back and give you advice when I was not in a place to be given advice and not in a mental headspace for that. And I also, if I didn't have anything to say, like that thing of if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. I was like, if I don't have anything meaningful to say, I'm just not going to say anything, because I really don't want to be another man with a microphone and a podcast. That is what I am. But I am adamant that I won't be like those bitchs. Shh, I didn't say that. Spotify, Apple Music. I definitely didn't swear. Okay. Bye, besties. Thank you so much for joining. I appreciate it. Bye. Love you. Stay safe and love yourself.